My name is Keith Walton. I'm a Great Western Railway brat. Both of my parents worked on the pre-nationalisation Great Western in Birmingham. They met, in fact, in Birmingham, Snow Hill, both working in the booking office. After my father got his first station in Hainault in Oxfordshire, he was moved down to the Somerset and Dorset, swift and delightful for its fans, slow and dirty for its detractors. We lived in a railway house, which was right alongside the tracks in Edington Burtle, out on the Somerset levels. Edington or Burtle was a junction when we first moved down to Somerset, up to Bridgewater to link in with the docks in Bridgewater, where quite a lot of timber used to come in from Scandinavia. So our line basically was the Somerset and Dorset joint, which came down from Bath over the Mendips to Evercreech, and my dad's line was the branch from that, which went west from Evercreech past Glastonbury, out over the levels, and he was stationmaster at Burtle, with full responsibility for the station and two other stations, Ashcott and Shapwick, which were basically centres for the peat industry. So one of the things that was their particular type of goods to deal with were blocks of peat which had been cut out for fuel and were bagged up and sent off by train, or just the very beginnings of the market garden industry, when the peat was dug out whole into big or 6 foot by 6 foot by 6 foot cubes, containers, which were then loaded onto goods wagons for use by market gardens. The first train would be the 6 o'clock off Highbridge, going to Evercreech through Glastonbury. That would be the milk train, which usually would not stop on its outward run from Highbridge. Highbridge being the junction with the main line between Bristol and Exeter. The milk train would go down and then it would pick up all the way back from Evercreech, going through mid-afternoon between the other passenger traffic. First passenger train was the one that took people to work. That would go through about 7:30 and get into Glastonbury at 8. And then there was another mid-morning passenger train in each direction. First one up from Evercreech at 9, first one in from Highbridge at just gone 11. Later in the day, of course, there was a couple more passenger trains each way. And in the evening, the last train up and down was 7:30 one way and 9 o'clock the other way. So there was night duty, but it had all the accoutrements of the normal station, the stationmaster's office and the porter's office and the signalman's den in his signal box, and there was a porter on each of the halts, Ashcott and Shapwick, and a porter at Burtle. Some of those old station houses were very, very basic. We didn't have running water. The water came in on the first passenger train in the morning in a milk churn. We didn't have electricity. We had the old kerosene lamps with incandescent mantles in them. We had a peat-fired cast iron stove. Well, it's my job to feed it with peat, and we discovered that if the fireman would be kind enough to drop off a shovel or two of coal off the tender of the engine, that went very well with the peat and made it burn better. No description of that station at Burtle would be complete without mentioning Tommy Mogg, who was a very famous signalman on the S&D. He used to have this big, highly polished brass bell, which he would lean out of his box at the end of the platform when a train was close and ring with great gusto to tell people to hurry up down the road if they were a little too far off to catch the train. He had what would now be called a ground frame, I suppose, but a set of 20 levers, because there was a a couple of good sidings on one side of the station. There was a passing loop in the station. There were 2 platforms, of course. And in that box also controlled the junction points and signals for the line up through Cossington to Bridgewater. The traffic generated was not huge. I would suspect over the years a steady loss maker. But on this little branch line, it was almost like an old-fashioned shop. The train would trundle in. Old farmer Tratt would come out and go get his pig out the van and wander off down the platform. Somebody else would have bought a sewing machine and that had to be handled out, and then somebody would carry it all the way up the road for him to home. Cider, beer, all had to be moved. Most of it came into the Station Arms, which was next door. The railway, as it was called, had its own wagon which came over to the station, and it was built to take a ton, TUN, barrel, which they then immediately put into their earth-floored skittle alley, and because they stored the cider down the side of the skittle alley. I can remember the lads rolling those things around. You see, originally, up until First World War, the levels flooded from Highbridge to Glastonbury. When people on television now talk about the levels, they talk about the area down Muchelney and Somerton and down there. That's not the levels, that's King Sedgemoor. But the levels, which are north of the Poldens, about 15 miles from Highbridge to Glastonbury, and about 6 miles wide from Wedmore down to, say, Catcut, that was a marsh. Up until the First World War, the levels flooded virtually every winter. It was just a big marsh. When we first moved down in 1951, there were still white posts at the side of the roads because people would then know where the road was so they could row from village to village in the winter. The thing that really was amazing in the winter, you could stand in my bedroom at Burtle, which was the house was right on the level crossing at the end of the station. So the train tracks went right by my window, 5 feet, 6 feet away. So you didn't sleep in after the milk train had gone through at 30 miles an hour. But if you looked east to Glastonbury, you would look right across an inland lake with trees sticking up out of it. Winter was a very damp time because our house was 6 foot below sea level, and it was the highest point between Highbridge and Glastonbury. For the foundation, the bottom floor, we had water in the house a dozen times, I would say, that I can remember. It's a part of the world which has stayed with me very much to the present day, and I value the fact that I grew up in somewhat humble surroundings, but I suspect it was a little tougher on my parents than I ever was aware.
Hi, this is Andrew from Heritage and Model Rail. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you would like to see similar content that I'm posting to the channel on a weekly basis, then become a subscriber by clicking on the button to the side of this panel. I also have other video content which you may find interesting. There is full-size heritage rail and passenger carrying model rail, examples of which are shown in the panels below. Just click on those and you'll go straight to the video. Thanks for watching. Catch up with you later. Bye.